All right, hello everyone and welcome. My name is John, and in this video I want to walk you through the soil recipes I'm using this year and the thought process behind why I'm choosing these mixes and why I'm using them on certain plants. Now, for those of you who don't know me, welcome, thank you for being here. I've been growing houseplants for about 4 years now, and throughout that time I have created my own potting mixes and my own recipes for 100% of my plants. So I've been fascinated by soil and I'm always experimenting. So at this point, I've just got my hands on as many different ingredients as possible. I've sifted and sorted things to various sizes, and I've tried well over 100 different recipes and variations over the years. So through all of that experimentation and testing, I have now arrived at 2 soil recipes which I will be using for all of my plants as I repot them this year. Okay, so if you want to make the best decision for which soil mixture you should use for your plants, you have to consider the relationship between the water needs of your plant and the growing conditions of where you have it located. So when your plant is getting a lot of light, a lot of warmth, a lot of humidity, it is going to be growing like crazy, and that means it will be very thirsty. So under those conditions, like a commercial greenhouse, you can use a super wet mixture and the plants will thrive because they are so thirsty. They're drinking up so much moisture every single day. It's not a problem if that mix holds a lot of moisture. Now then, if you take that same mix and you move a plant 15 feet away from a small window, it is going to cause problems because it's just going to stay wet for far too long under those conditions. So please understand that these recommendations I'm making to you in this video, these are going to be working for me and my plants in this space, and you might need to alter some of these for yourself. But I hope that by the end of this video, you'll at least be well equipped to make an informed decision. Okay, so I used to grow all my plants in a mix that was equal parts bark, potting soil, and perlite. And this is a fantastic mix that worked for absolutely everything I tested it on. So if you want the quick answer, what is the best all-around soil mix, the most classic recipe of all time, that is it. Bark, potting soil, and perlite in equal proportion. And of course, instead of potting soil, you can use coco coir, you can use peat moss, and you can sub pumice instead of the perlite or lava or something like that. That is going to work very well for anything. Now then, because I'm always putting all of my plants as close to the window as possible, I don't need to use that mix anymore. I'm moving towards things that hold more moisture than that. And also, I'm going to be moving soon, and a lot of my larger plants are being inherited by my moms. I've been living at my mom's for the last year. It's been a wonderful year. Now I'm going to move out with some friends, and I want to make sure that these plants will continue to thrive and require less maintenance since I won't be here to lift them all to the sink every week. So the first mix that I'm using and that I would recommend for the majority of your plants, as long as they're getting enough light, is equal parts of bark, potting soil, coco coir, and pumice. Now I prefer pumice over perlite because it doesn't float as much. But you can definitely use perlite, and if you don't want to use coco coir, you can use 2 parts of potting soil instead. So as you can see, it's very similar to the all-purpose, classic mix I mentioned before, except we're adding that additional portion of coco coir, and I do prefer the coco coir over peat moss because it just absorbs moisture a little more easily, although they're both going to be very nice, fluffy options. So this is a great mix. It's going to work very well. It's excellent for airwids as long as they're getting plenty of light, and it just doesn't require as much watering as the more chunky options. So I've actually already done several repots this year, and I'm using that mix for all of my ficuses. I don't want the ficuses to be too wet, so this is an excellent mix that holds a lot of moisture, but there's still sufficient chunkiness to it to keep those roots happy and thriving, and it's just a little bit easier to water. The other benefit compared to a very chunky mix is that you can go around and water this with a watering can. You don't need to just take your plants to the sink or to the hose all the time to be getting them nice and moist. It's very easy to use a watering can with a mix like this. So if you're looking for a lower maintenance but still very well performing, well-rounded soil mix, this is the one I would recommend for all of your plants. Ficuses, philodendrons, anthurium, monstera, all of these are going to love it, as long as you're not sticking them, on the opposite side of the room from your window. Okay, so soil mix number 2. This is the wettest mix I've ever tested, ever used. I never thought I would arrive at a mix this wet. I used to be so afraid of that, but it actually works very well under the right conditions and when used properly. So for this, all you're gonna need is 2 parts of potting soil and 1 part of perlite. So not very chunky, holds a lot of moisture, it's gonna stay pretty wet, requires low maintenance, and it's very easy to go and water these with a watering can. It's gonna absorb moisture easily. You won't need to be flushing it all the time to make sure all those chunks get wet. It's a very low maintenance soil that still is gonna work well, just not in low light. And it's also, if you put a plant into a large pot of this, if you overpot it, it's gonna be way too wet. That root system will be overwhelmed by how long the moisture remains, because remember that roots need access to oxygen, and so they need that soil to dry out partway, or they need the spaces between the chunks to access that moisture, access that air, sorry. Okay, so I'm using this mixture for low maintenance plants, the chill house plants. So pothos, boom, going straight into this. I have some long trailing plants, and as I'm moving out, I don't want my mom to have to climb up and pull these things down very often, so she can just go up and pour some water on it with this mix, and it's gonna be fine. So I would recommend this as a very easy soil mixture for any of the low maintenance chill plants like that. Now, the other thing I'm using this mixture for, actually, it's gonna be for these 2 large plants right here. So I wouldn't normally recommend this as a good airwood mix, so philodendron and alocasia. I normally wouldn't use a mix this wet. I would go with that first option. However, these are large plants. They've been in these pots for a while. The root system is going to have mostly filled that pot, which means it can easily drink all the moisture in that pot fairly quickly. The other thing is that these plants both live outside for a good portion of the year, and so outdoors where it's warmer, there's more light, it's much better for them to have a wetter mixture. And the third reason I want to use this mix for these plants is that these are very big, heavy clay pots. So each of these plants in these pots probably weighs like 30 to 40 pounds. So it's not the kind of thing I want to force my mom to be picking up these heavy plants, taking them to the sink and watering. So with this mixture, 2 parts potting soil, 1 part perlite, it'd be so easy to just walk over there with a watering can or a glass of water, pour some water on, and they'll be good to go. But again, if these were in larger pots or if they were smaller plants where the root system compared to the amount of soil, the soil volume, if that root system was a lot smaller compared to the soil volume, this would not work very well. So I'm only doing it for these 2 because they're so large and those pots are heavy and they're going to be outdoors for a good portion of the year. Okay, so remember that all these plants I'm talking about would even be happier in that mix I used to use, equal parts bark, potting soil, and perlite, because that has more chunks. And so then the roots have more access to air and they're getting watered more often, and the roots love getting, and the root system love getting flushed, fresh water, fresh nutrients. That water pulls that fresh oxygen in. So all these plants would do even better in that, but I'd be watering more often. And when you have a very chunky mix and it gets dried out, it's very hard to get it wet again with a watering can, because the water's gonna rush right through, the saucer's gonna be too full, you're gonna have to take it to the sink or take it outside and use the hose. So I don't want to be doing that, and I don't want to have my mom do that, so I'm using these wetter mixtures to make things easier, and because they're still gonna work just fine. So growth may be a little slower, but plant care will be easier, and so that is the balance I'm trying to strike this year. My plant journey, year 4, we want things to be easy. So that is where I'm at. That is what I have come to with all of my experiments, and I'll probably do a lot more experiments in the future, but for now, I'm going to take a very small collection of my favorite plants with me to my new location, and I want to make sure that those are easy for me to take care of, and that all the plants I'm leaving behind here at my mom's beautiful house will continue to grow and thrive in the coming months and years. So I really hope this helps you, and if you want any specific recommendations, please reach out in the comments. I would love to hear what kind of questions or concerns you have, because Again, these might not work as well for your plants in your location, but with a few adjustments here or there, anything can be made to work in your space as well. So if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, hit that subscribe button so you can come back for more. And you can come check out my plant account on Instagram at Enlightened Gardener. And as always, I thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all the best with your plants and with your life. And I hope to see you back here again real soon. Peace.